It was 2 a.m. when Daniel's phone rang. The sound sliced through the silence of his small apartment like a blade. His heart skipped a beat, every parent's worst fear surfaced instantly. His 7-year-old daughter, Emma, was asleep in the next room, her soft breathing the only comfort he had most nights. Daniel rubbed his eyes and answered, his voice rough from exhaustion, "Hello?" There was a pause. Then a woman's trembling voice whispered, "Please. I need help. They said you could come." Daniel frowned, sitting upright. "I'm sorry, who is this?" The woman sounded disoriented, her voice breaking. "Are you not the doctor? Please. I can't breathe." Before he could respond, the line went dead, something in that voice wouldn't let him go back to sleep. He could have ignored it, told himself it was a wrong number, but he couldn't shake the fear he heard in her tone. He checked the caller ID. Unknown number. No address. Yet, as he looked out the window, he saw heavy rain pouring down on the lonely streets of his town, a place where people often minded their own business. Daniel had been a single dad for 5 years. Since his wife, Claire, passed away from cancer, he'd lived a quiet life working night shifts as a mechanic. He wasn't a hero, not even close. But something in him whispered, "Go." He got up, slipped on his jacket, and looked at Emma's sleeping face. "I'll be right back, princess," he whispered, leaving a note on the kitchen counter. Driving through the storm, he replayed the woman's voice in his head. He traced the number online and got a location, an address far out near the edge of the city, a neighborhood he'd never been to. When he arrived, his headlights illuminated an old iron gate leading to a mansion, silent, cold, and drenched in rain. It looked abandoned. Still, he got out and ran to the front door, knocking hard. "Hello?" he shouted. "I got a call, someone needed help." After a few seconds, the door creaked open. Standing there was a young woman in her late 20s, pale and trembling, wearing a silk nightgown soaked at the hem. Her eyes were red from crying. I didn't mean to call anyone," she whispered, her voice shaky. "But you came." Daniel looked her over. "You sounded scared. Are you okay?" Tears filled her eyes. "No one ever asks that," she said softly, then stepped aside to let him in. The mansion's halls were dim, echoing with loneliness. Family portraits lined the walls, people smiling, dressed in wealth. But everything felt cold. She finally said her name, Isabella Monroe. The heiress of the Monroe estate, a name Daniel had heard before. Her father was a powerful businessman who died months ago, leaving her everything, but she didn't look like someone who had everything. She led him into the sitting room where a half-empty bottle of wine sat on the table beside scattered papers. "I didn't call a doctor," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I called my father's old number. I just pressed redial. I didn't know who'd pick up." Daniel felt something twist in his chest. "You sounded like you needed someone." "I did," she said, staring at her hands. "It's been months since he passed. Everyone just wants my money, not me." Tonight, I couldn't stand the silence anymore. The storm raged outside as they talked. She told him about her loneliness, her regrets, how she'd built walls so high no one could reach her. And Daniel, who'd lived through his own loss, found himself listening, not out of pity, but understanding. "Loss changes people," he said quietly. "But sometimes, it also brings the right people together." Hours passed. By dawn, the rain had stopped, and a soft light filled the room. Daniel realized he'd forgotten the time, forgotten everything except the fragile woman sitting across from him who looked, for the first time, a little less broken. He stood up. "I should go. My daughter's probably wondering where I am." Isabella's eyes softened. "You have a daughter?" "Emma. She's 7. "My world," he said with a tired smile. Isabella hesitated, then whispered, "Would you, maybe come back sometime? I don't know why, but when you're here, it doesn't feel so empty." Daniel nodded. "Sure. If you ever need a friend, just call." Hopefully not at 2 a.m. next time. They both laughed softly, something neither of them had done in a long time. Days turned into weeks. Daniel would stop by after work with Emma. The little girl brought warmth into the mansion, drawing on its walls with chalk, playing hide and seek in the hallways. For the first time in years, laughter filled the house. Isabella started smiling again. She cooked, painted, and even opened her father's old art gallery, dedicating it to helping orphans and single parents. She said Daniel and Emma inspired her to bring love back into her life. One evening, as the three of them watched the sunset from the mansion's balcony, Emma tugged Isabella's sleeve. "You look sad sometimes," she said innocently. "Daddy says sad hearts just need a little home." Isabella knelt, her eyes glistening. "He's right, sweetheart." She turned to Daniel. "You showed up that night for a stranger. You didn't owe me anything. But you saved me." Daniel smiled softly. "Maybe we both needed saving." Silence fell between them, gentle and full of meaning. The sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in gold and crimson. Months later, that same house became a home, not for an heiress and a mechanic, but for a family built from broken pieces that somehow fit perfectly together. When people asked Isabella how she met Daniel, she would smile and say, "He got the wrong call," but answered it anyway. And every night before bed, Emma would giggle and tell the story again, because sometimes, the wrong number can lead you exactly where you're meant to be. Moral: sometimes fate doesn't knock politely. It calls at 2 a.m., disguised as a wrong number. But if you have the courage to answer, it might just lead you to the place your heart was always searching for.